All right, there we go. Sorry about that, everyone. Sweet. So, welcome to another Vader Bear family episode. We are going to be discussing Christmas and other holidays in part, but mostly focusing on our journey coming out of Christmas. And we're excited to share that with you. We're going to kind of start both at our adolescence when we were kids and kind of develop that to where when we got married and then from those struggles forward. So yeah, hope y'all are excited to hear our story on this part of our path.
Do you need to do any? Is this just this? You're not doing any like home? What do you call it? Housekeeping?
No, no housekeeping, just like last time.
Okay, I can't remember.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to make sure that the audio is good. Okay, there we go. Put a cabinet because we need all. Everyone is closed. Yeah, yeah, everything is closed.
Yeah.
Celebrating Mr. Nimrod, but we'll get to that. Don't want to be too harsh there.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, Sam. Hi, Matt. Hi, Robert. Who else is here?
Eternal Light's here. It's all right here, baby.
Oh.
See all those names there?
Yeah. Hi, Eternal Light. No housekeeping, no chores.
Sweet. So, yeah, let's kind of get into it. So, I think we should start off by saying that we're not throwing any judgment out there on people who do still celebrate Christmas. We know that through our own path, our own journey, that it is very difficult when it comes to friends and family and loved ones when you make such a change in your life. Definitely one like us that we've been celebrating and participating in since we were babies. So,
yep. There's a definite spirit about Christmas, the Christmas spirit for sure. And growing up doing all of the holidays, you're not so much learning what it's about. You're just having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all for fun, is like what they tell you. For me specifically, I know with Christmas, it wasn't really about Jesus's birth. I think that our parents want to hound that into us because it's like kind of a justification of what we're doing. But when you're a child growing up doing Christmas, you're like presents. It's very, very materialistic.
Like so much where you're like, you almost, as a kid, you plan around Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really want this thing. I'll ask for that thing for Christmas
all year long. Yeah.
So I'm gonna spend my money on this other stuff that I want, but I know for Christmas I'll ask for this thing and get that thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's associated with so many good memories. Baking cookies, cooking in general, Christmas music, all the boppers, rocking around the Christmas tree. Jingle Bell Rock.
Yeah.
So we have so many good memories. One of my favorite memories for Christmas is every year me and my dad, we would go together to pick out the Christmas tree, and it was just something that we did.
Mm-hmm.
and I love that. And they didn't know better. Like, they didn't have this fountain of information historically telling them where these holidays started. So no blame, no shame to the generation before us that has done it differently. I'm glad to be awake to where it came from, and I'm so happy to be able to do things differently for our children. But I have so many good memories from celebrating the holidays growing up.
Yeah, same. And looking back, like the Christmases, my parents were separated, like me knowing it when I was around 5, almost 6. And so there was almost also kind of like a cool thing where it's like, oh, I get 2 Christmases. I get to get all these presents from my dad and his side, and then I get all my presents from my mom and her side, and it almost felt like it doubled in the amount of presents. And you almost kind of see that in entertainment today, where like they bring up that topic. Oh, that just means you get 2 Christmases, like when talking about divorce and stuff like that. So but back on topic, yeah, like as a kid I have tons of memories. My dad used to always, because it would be snowing, he would make ice cream using the snow. He would he had this little machine where he'd use the snow as the ice, and he'd mix the salt, and then he would, put his own cream and his own stuff. And so, yeah, I have all these memories. And then, of course, growing up more in the north, because even though I was born in Texas, I grew up a lot of my life in Washington State. We would get snow, so I always associated that with going snowboarding and like all the fun things you do during the winter time, especially around Christmas. And so, yeah, it coming from that perspective, it was really easy to, it was really hard to like kind of forsake all those traditions and all those memories. And I think that can be kind of a red herring, or maybe not the greatest thing to do, is you take all those memories and then now we associate it with the bad. And so in ways, I think that can also come out into our families, that, oh, we're saying all those memories, all those good times were bad.
And they're so not.
Yeah, so
our parents put in so much effort and love into making that time special, like their parents did for them. And I'm not knocking those traditions at all. And we have so much family who still does them. And it's such a beautiful time of the year for Christmas. It's so beautiful. Like, and the lights, our children look at the Christmas lights, even though we don't do Christmas, and we're not like, oh, Christmas lights are from the enemy. We're like, no, those Christmas lights are beautiful.
And that's one thing, is like that, what I was kind of going to was the offense that is caused. So a lot of the times, and, this is kind of, and we'll kind of get back to this, of what it is to like go through that wall, right? It's like that once you go through that wall, kind of analyzing and really critiquing what you did in the past, but also having grace because of your ignorance, I think is super important, not only to do for yourself, right, but to also do for others, because it's very easy for us, for multiple years we haven't celebrated Christmas, to be like, oh yeah, we don't celebrate Christmas. And you tell that to someone who does celebrate Christmas and like us has all those beautiful memories associated with it, it can be a season of causing offense to them. And while I don't think causing offense to others, right, because of your truth, I think you can also do it in a loving way, where maybe even though it is an offensive topic, you're actually coming across as loving. And so we're going to kind of explore that as well.
Like when someone tells you Merry Christmas.
Dude, it is so hard. Like, guys, that's something I still struggle with. I want to be like, I literally say you too, like, because it's so hard. But it's like, I am learning that balance, and I really do. We're still on our path to truth, so we're still learning. And just a little kind of quick about the future is like, we swayed when we came from normal mainline Christianity into Torah, right? We went from like we went all the way on the other side of the pendulum.
Yeah,
and
we'll get there.
Yeah, and so now we're kind of swinging back for a more balanced view. And so we still all do struggle with things, but things like that, like with Merry Christmas, I just want to say you too, like, I don't want to, and here's another thing I was thinking about. So, we've dabbled in celebrating Hanukkah, and kind of,
no, we're not there yet.
Well, just hear me out. Well, I'm jumping a little bit, but like, it goes along with like, someone comes to my door, and I was just thinking about, someone comes to my door, they see Happy Hanukkah, and they're like, oh, those people don't love Christ.
Well,
you know how quickly like you are labeled as a Jew, which in context means that like you rejected the Messiah. And it's like, it's hard to how do you tell people like, we love Messiah, he is still super important into what we believe. Just because we are following the old ways, like the old ways, the Father's ways, doesn't mean that we forsake the Messiah.
The reason why I don't make a divisive line with those who like say Merry Christmas is one, because I think that's silly, and two is because those who have come to know us, our friends, our Torah observant group, our neighbors who still, not Torah observant people doing Christmas, but other people who are doing Christmas, and they say Happy Hanukkah, that makes me feel loved.
Yeah, but it's like, I get it.
Like,
but
they are respectful of our choice to have done Hanukkah.
No, and I get that. I understand where you're coming from. All I'm saying is that, to me, it's hard. Now knowing what it is, it's like,
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like, am I participating even in that? You know what so I'm not. Again, we're not perfect. We're growing. So let's kind of start it off. So we kind of explain where we came from. We grew up celebrating Christmas,
all the holidays.
Yeah, all the normal holidays, and so I want to kind of steal the show for a second. So even though we're talking about Christmas, I do got to get into Halloween, because I had always like had a weird feeling about Halloween, and no one ever specifically told me anything about it. And I saw Christians. I participated in Halloween at church, right, where we would go in as biblical characters, right, and that somehow made it morally okay. So I had gone through that, but I always thought there was something weird about it, and I could never really put my hands on it. Well, skip 20 years into my life, I'm still in Washington, and have all these things going in on my life, all these negative choices that I made, and people that I shouldn't be around, and all that stuff. We've all been there. And so I had basically set it up where I was going to move to Texas, get a clean slate. Well, when I went to Texas, I couldn't find work at first, so I went to Illinois, and that's where my sister and her husband, actually, and my brother and their children were all there. And they shared a video with me, basically talking about Halloween and where its actual origins are. So I watched that video, and I was super interested in it, and so I dug into it on the internet, and I, of course, came across the plethora of information about the actual origins of Halloween and so forth. So I had already had, and with my conspiratorial mind, I had already had misgivings about these things, especially Halloween, because that's openly, you can kind of tell what it is.
Well, now they try to justify Halloween as like
a way to
All Saints Day.
Yeah, or yeah,
that it is Christian now.
Yeah, and so that going forward, I came a point to my life where at this time we were married, and we had celebrated Christmas together for a few years while we were dating, and then we got married, and we had a couple Christmases. So on the picture that we shared, that was actually our very last Christmas.
No, it was not.
It was my last Christmas.
No, so going back to Halloween real quick, and then I'll get you caught up on the timeline. So, when he was in Illinois and he was learning about Halloween, we still hadn't met. When he came to Texas, that's when we met. So, we were engaged.
When we were dating,
I was doing Halloween with my niece and nephew, like taking them out trick-or-treating. And that was the first time ever that somebody was like, hey, have you ever looked into the origins of Halloween?
Yeah,
and I was like, no, it's just for fun.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember, that eventually coming up in a conversation where you were like, hey, take the children, you want to go with me, because I was very close to the niece and nephew. I'm still close to the niece and nephew, but she had invited me to go with them, and I was like, I don't really want to participate in that. And I guess that was the first kind of, for you, I guess you can kind of talk about it from your perspective of me bringing up something that to you was no big deal.
Yeah. So Zachariah Vader he's not tyrannical at all. He never, except for with the end of the world stuff. But when it's come to holidays, he's always been this is what I've learned. I think that you should look into it. It's your choice what you do going forward. Even after we had babies, that was his way of going about it, and it makes it very easy to submit to.
Well, let's go back a little bit. So let's talk about, I know we're on Halloween, we're talking about Christmas, but
I'm doing Halloween.
well, I know. So that was like the first time where we had this kind of, where, you know, as a because I was always conspiratorial, right? Like I had talked about 9/11, I had talked about all the different things. And while they were, you know, going on, you know, in current times, we would talk about it. So when I said that to you, did you take it as, you know, like how we were kind of talking about before, of where you were like, oh, I didn't say Merry Christmas. Like I'm kind of thinking back about to that Halloween story. I was very much like, yeah, like I don't even think I said you. I was just like, no, I'm not going to participate in it because it's dark. Not, it's dark or whatever. I don't remember exactly what I said, but that you still went, right? Yeah. And you still went a couple years.
No, that was the last time I went.
Was with them.
Okay. Was to take them trick or treating. So.
And then over that next year, you kind of looked into it more and kind of realized what it was, and then. Yep. Come next Halloween, we had fully separated for it, but from it, yeah. And I feel like we need to do a Halloween episode, you know, when that comes. But so let's jump back forward. So we had been dating. We had been doing Christmas. We got married. We had been doing Christmas, and then at a certain point, I came to you.
Okay, so we had our as married with our daughter. The year that we moved here was 2015. That's the picture that's on. It was December of 2015. That's the picture of the stream. And our daughter was just about to turn 1 year old. And we did that Christmas. And then the following year, we did her second Christmas. And that was, that's when he was really starting to come into like the truth about things. And he wasn't like super excited about doing Christmas. Well, so after that second Christmas, he came to me and he was like, I've really been digging deep into this. I'm not going to participate in this anymore. As the mother of our children, I urge you to look into this because you're rearing them up and teaching them from home. And he was like, so if you choose to do that with the children, then that's your choice as their mother, but I just won't be involved anymore. And my head like exploded. My head exploded. And but I knew enough at that point from him talking about like anti-jabs and Halloween and Easter or Ishtar that at this point it was like, okay, I need to take what he says seriously because he's got a really good track record of being right about of where these things come from that we're celebrating. And so so our daughter's third Christmas, we were not doing it at home anymore.
So yeah, let's kind of jump into that. So at first, right, I was basically like, I'm not going to participate in it. I'm not going to tell you not to, but this is why I'm not. And so kind of over the years, like it didn't stop immediately, but it kind of lessened from your side, right? Like you weren't doing as much decoration. You weren't trying to do as big as of a tree. You're kind of scaling it back slowly. And then when you came to kind of the realization for yourself through your own research, that's when you're like, okay, I'm done with Christmas. So kind of talking about that, for other men out there that are maybe coming to truce, and then maybe your wife isn't there yet, you have to have mercy, you have to have grace for them. And a lot of the times we, as truth seekers, we want to start at the end of the story. And I think that's really intelligent, how Sean brought that up of like people want to start in Revelations without reading Genesis. And it's much more than that, because when we're coming from the truth, right, we're we're not building upon all that we had built upon in our lives to come to those conclusions, to come to those truths, and we kind of spoil them the end of the story without them really having to work through it themselves and come to those realizations. And so I had seen that in my life before of zealotry of other things, and so for her, I did it much different by kind of offering that solution where it's not this ultimatum, you're going to not do it anymore. It's I'm going to step out and feel free to do it. And so she eventually, kind of looked around and did her research and was like, whoa, he's on the other side of that fence. I want to be there over with him because I now see what he was saying. And so, okay, so now let's talk about friends and family.
Okay, so it's our daughter's third Christmas, and
I'm gonna grab some water.
Okay. And we're not doing it at home anymore. But there was so much contention with our family, so it really deeply, deeply offended them. And I think that your family thinks that, oh, they're judging us for doing it when they're not doing it, and that's not what it is. Like, it's not our place to go and put judgment on people. Like, if you're gonna celebrate it, you do you. Our lives are supposed to be a testimony, and I think that that's where people get hung up on either side, is that you think that you have to go and you have to tell people, like, this is evil, it's dark, this is where it comes from. But I think that you catch more people when you just let them ask. Like, and this might not be for everybody, but I choose to live my life as a testimony the best way that I can. And then if somebody asks, why do you do Hanukkah instead of Christmas? Or why do you do the feasts instead of doing Easter and Christmas and Halloween? And then it gives us a chance to tell them. Well, our family took it very personally, and I don't think that they in the beginning really cared to know why. It was just, it was basically they were asking us to compromise. And they were like, well, how about if we don't, if we just have a dinner together on Christmas? We don't have to do all of the Christmas things, but let's just have a meal together. And that my daughter's third Christmas, we said yes. We said, okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, so kind of jumping in here.
That was our last Christmas.
Yeah, so, and even working kind of from that, and even after since that, there's still struggles, right? Because there's certain people that we would get to see more regularly if we participated in the mainline, Christian holidays, that we don't. And so that's unfortunate. But there's also that kind of contention that you were kind of hinting about where people take it personally. It's almost like you're questioning their salvation when you come to these truths, right? Like you have this boldness about you, and I believe that's boldness from the Spirit, where you want to set down these boundaries and be like, I'm not going to participate in these things anymore because I know what they are. And again, they kind of take it personally, as if you're questioning their salvation or telling them they're participating in pagan religions and things. And especially with my mother, still takes it hard to this day that she can't get them Christmas gifts, right? Like, we do it, and this is still our learning process within Hanukkah, but we don't do it like the Jewish celebrate Hanukkah. We do it in a very different way. And we're not even saying that's the right way. We're saying we're practicing, we're learning, and it's difficult. And so, for my mom as an example, she's like, well, what do y'all do? And we're like, we don't know. We're trying to figure it out. She's like, well, can't y'all, compromise and come over a little to our side? And it's like, well, if you knew what we knew, you wouldn't ask us to do that. And what's interesting I find about that is the things you bring up, a lot of those time the people don't want to look into it. They like their holidays. They like their memories.
Of the spirit. There's a literal spirit.
And they want to hold on to those things, and it's like, well, we still hold on to those memories of the goodness
and they don't understand that either. That we cherish the memories that we made,
but we're learning.
It's a personal attack to them.
Yeah, they do. They very much take it personal, and it's hard, right? Because it's that time, and definitely, you know, I feel for the people out there that are maybe they just have that one group of family nearby, and they celebrate Christmas, and so it's like, do you go? Do you not go? And we're not placing any judgment. We're not telling people what to do and how.
This is just our journey.
Yeah, this is just our journey, and what we've decided and how we've gone about it. And
these holidays are very much associated with togetherness and family and love.
Yeah. And so you're almost telling them, like, I don't want to participate with y'all in that togetherness. And it's like, we don't, and there's reasons why. And so, and you can go with those reasons, right? You can give people, logic or the evidence. But again, you'll find that the people that don't want to know. You could tell them all day, and that's going to go in one ear and out the other.
One of the steps that we did first was, before we even had Jocelyn, we had decided to give up Santa. Mm-hmm. So we had that was like the first. We were at that point. I thought we would always celebrate Christmas, but we weren't going. We had made the decision before she was born to not lie to them.
Yeah, not to never say presents or from. Yeah, to never say the Easter Bunny hid the eggs. To never say that Santa brought the presents.
That was my first step for Christmas, and I would say that was the easiest one to get over. And I think that I've typed this up in numerous live chats before, but I think that there's a lot of parallels between teaching your children about Santa and then also about Yeshua or Yah, because when we're partaking in teaching our children about Santa, we're teaching them about a man that you can't see, living in a place that you cannot visit, watching whether you're doing good or bad things, and then basically rewarding you based off of your actions. And then they come to a certain age or a certain point in their life and they realize, oh, you lied to me about Santa. Whereas Yeshua is someone that you can't see, living in a place that you can't visit, watching over us in his tabernacle or what have you.
Yeah, like in most modern families, you're taught the Santa's real, the Tooth Fairy's real, the Easter Bunny is real, and God is real. And then as you progress in life, you realize Santa and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy aren't real. And then you get to, high school, and then you start learning about the heliocentric model. And very soon, most people come out of that believing that God isn't real. Mm-hmm. And so, and I think that that's an interesting thing. And we can kind of get into that later, like the why to it, right? And that goes into more of what the holiday is actually about and stuff like that, but we're not quite there yet, guys, but we'll get there.
And I know that, like, people who have come out of celebrating Christmas specifically, it's not easy. Like, I know that for me, it was very, very, it felt very lonely. Like, when we decided to not do it at home that first year, and I knew that, like, the world, all of my neighbors,
it was all around us. We could see it.
And so I just, like, sat there with my two little babies at that point, and I was like,
what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, I felt like a bad mom. I felt like something was missing, that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing to be building these memories yet, because we hadn't come into the feasts. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have anything to replace it with, and not that you should be replacing it with anything. I don't want to get on a soapbox.
Yeah, but it kind of gets like that, right? That it's like all around you, these events, and I think that's what makes it so seductive, right? Because think about all the people. Like, one thing that I think is interesting about Christmas is it's supposedly a Christian holiday, but every single religion celebrates it. They celebrate it in Japan. They celebrate it, all across the earth.
Atheists.
They celebrate it, right? And it kind of makes me think back to where with Christmas and with Christmas movies, right? They say, how does Santa get to all the houses all around the world, right? when in actuality you mean just like North and just North and South America and just a small part of Europe and Russia. Like the rest of the world, right, they don't celebrate Christmas in India. They don't celebrate Christmas in China, etc., etc. Well, but when you look at America, right, America is full of different religions and atheists, and I met Satanists who literally celebrate Christmas.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think it's coming out more and more now that like people are wishing you like happy winter solstice, and like pagans are like, oh, this is our favorite time of year, this holiday is for us, and it's becoming more apparent.
Yeah, they're starting to remove the veneer, the facade, and show like, hey, this is what we've been celebrating this for thousands and thousands of years. This is nothing new. And of course, we'll dive into that a little bit later on. But like, yeah, there's so many different forms of Christmas, and what it's really about. But we'll get into that. So we kind of talked about us leading up to Christmas and our last bit of Christmas, our last year with our family and doing the dinner, and then it kind of got weird from there for parts, right? Because we had pretty much signed out. We also were at that time heavily like, okay, well, are they going to a place that has Christmas decorations?
Yeah.
We went through that phase for a little bit where we were like, okay,
are they, if they're at their relative's house, are they allowed to decorate the tree?
Yeah,
the
right.
Answer is no.
Yeah, so things like that where they're like, oh, well, can we just do gingerbread houses, or can we just do, and I'm not saying gingerbread houses are wrong. I'm not saying for anyone. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying in our own journey, we're still kind of conflicted about some things here and there, and it's like, do we do like, where we're at now is like, is Hanukkah something we should actually, are we just using Hanukkah as a way to kind of have a mini Christmas around this time? And again, because everyone from all these different religions are doing something around this, and then we look at the, as the Bible, or as the world describes the chosen people and the things that we're doing, right? Like we kind of look at them for insight on, okay, well, what should we do? And I will say something that I think is interesting about the whole thing, because we know Hanukkah as a feast is not commanded. We do see Yeshua going to that the Hanukkah service.
We've never done a gingerbread house.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, I've just using an example, but
sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're just yelling out things.
So sorry. Well, let's take this opportunity now that you don't remember.
No, I want to remember what I was talking about. I don't want you to just steal what I was saying.
I wasn't.
Gosh dang you, woman.
I was just gonna say hi to people.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
We were maneuvering.
Yeah, so even that is like, it's hard with, okay, I remember Hanukkah, right? So we have the dedication of the temple, and I can totally see the connection of the rededication of the temple, right? After the day of the Lord, and when he get his king reigns, right? It's going to be rededicated here on earth. In my, that's my opinion. I could totally be wrong about that. But so I see the beauty in it, and I see him going to it, right? We didn't see him going to Saturnalius, right? We didn't see him showing up at the, the Jewish feast after Hanukkah, right? Accepting or giving gifts. We just see him there. So that we get a very small snidbit of what that means. And so, we're looking elsewhere. We're looking into, so-called epigraphal Deuteronomical scriptures to see if maybe there's insight there onto Hanukkah or things like it. And so, overall, guys, this is a learning process, and we shouldn't be quick as a community, as truth seekers, to throw shade or throw rocks at people who are not quite on the path that we are, or at the path we are at the time that we are. And so, of course, we're zealot. We love truth. We're seeking truth. And so when we find it, we often want to share that with others. and as good as information, like as we were talking about earlier, that you could share with your friends and family about why you don't celebrate Christmas, if they're not after that information, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
It's going to look like an attack.
Yeah, and a great example of that is when I told her, hey, I'm not celebrating it. I knew why I wasn't celebrating it, but I didn't sit there and, show try to force the evidence to say why it was bad. I let her come to her own conclusions. I think we should do that with friends and family.
I think that, like what you do is you live your life as a testimony, and then you let the Father do the work. And that's basically what he did. He was like, I've looked into it, and this is what I think. You're welcome to do what you want, but I urge you to look into it as well. And then the Father took over, is what happened. So he let the Father do a work in me and show me the truth.
So Tim Foilband says, is it wrong to celebrate things that do not violate Torah? I think not, but who am I? So, that's a great question, a great thought, an idea. We celebrate 4th of July. We celebrate Thanksgiving, right? Things that have nothing to do with Torah. I don't have really any issues with. Where I personally get tripped up is when we can associate things directly back of the celebration to negative things, right? Things that are against Torah. So, for instance, Christmas in itself and its modern explanation, right, isn't necessarily against Torah. But if you dig deep and you look at its conception and where it comes from and who it's actually, praising, and, there's a lot of bait and switch of dates and births and all that stuff. So when you look into that, there's something there. When you look into the 4th of July, we're literally celebrating the independence of our country, which I'm thankful for, regardless of all of its kinks and all of its issues and all of the corruption that exists. I'm thankful we live in the place that we do. And I am going to celebrate our Independence Day when we became the country we are now, because, again, I appreciate that country.
The whole idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and then same thing with Thanksgiving, right? People, all these types of people coming together and eating food and sharing and having thanks for the life that you've been given, right? There's beauty in that. And there's beauty in Christmas. We've already explained that, but, sorry, baby, but when it comes to it, what is it actually about? And that's where one of the reasons why we stopped celebrating.
Okay, so I think that, when you're putting up this front that, we're doing this for Yeshua, we're doing this for Yah, and that's not really how these things started. And then the other side wants to say, well, we're taking it back. No, you're not. It was never his to begin with. It was not commanded of you to do those things.
When people stop saying Merry Christmas and they're like, no, you got to say Happy Holidays. And then you had all these Christians come out saying, bring back Christmas, bring back Christmas. And it's like, wait, that's not even, but there's that bait and switch.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So, go ahead.
And then for, do you want to talk about Easter or no?
Well, I think we can do an Easter. I don't think we should dive too deep into it, but if you have something to kind of parallel, of course it parallels, but...
So I think that Halloween was the easiest to get rid of because of its blatant darkness. And then Easter, it was
like the second hardest?
No.
Or the second easiest?
Easiest, because we were already not going to lie to them. So, like, the Easter Bunny idea...
was already out from the beginning.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Uh-huh. And then really digging into, like, Ishtar... and why we colored Easter eggs. We never did that with the children. We never colored Easter eggs. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I had figured out about Easter either before Jocelyn. Well, I still took her to church. So Zach didn't go, but we still went to, I was still in Sunday church. So we still went to Easter Sunday, I think for her first year. That was the only year. And then after that, I kept researching, and so that was the second easiest thing to give up.
Yeah, and I that makes sense. Halloween, it's obvious. Easter, it's a little bit less obvious, but it's still obvious. And then Christmas is like a complete, it's so hard to cut it out, right? For a lot of reasons. Even when I had rejected Christmas and I told her in our own house, I'm not going to be celebrating it. I still went to family Christmases. I still ate the family Christmas dinner. I still went over and opened presents, right? So, it's definitely a process. To just jump out of it completely. I feel like we jumped out of it pretty hard, right? And I feel like we could have jumped out of it way harder, and I feel like the struggle we got is how hard we jumped out, right? Like when we kind of stepped back slowly, like kind of methodically, with some of these things, it was much easier. When we jumped out with just emotion, with just it was different. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, and
Excuse
I
me.
think too, like in the time when we had like made the decision, and we were like, we're not going to compromise anymore, with like family and friends. It was like we kind of felt like we had to be, because we had compromised.
Yeah.
Knowing that it wasn't for us, and trying to still make people feel loved and make people feel happy. I think that once we had made the decision that we weren't going to compromise anymore, that's when it became like, okay, we didn't have like one foot in the door and out the door anymore. That's when I think that it was
when we closed, like we slowly, left the party. But when we closed the door and they knew, like, when we closed the door, we're not coming back for that thing, that's when kind of the anger, the
spit hit the fan.
Yeah, that's when the kind of venom came out. And, and even we're still working through that in a lot of, in little different ways, comparatively, but it's still a struggle. So let's actually kind of stop and let's actually talk about Christmas. And why some of the things for me to some of the things for you, and of course there's parallel there, of why we saw Christmas in this new light comparatively to how we had seen it in the past.
So we talked about Santa, and then another big thing for me was, and granted, like, we're not doing the feast yet, so was the Christmas tree. That one was easier to see, and we never,
from Scripture.
We never had a big Christmas tree, like even the first 2 years that we did it, because we lived in a tiny little apartment. We had just moved to Utah, and so we had like a little tiny Christmas tree in our living room, and then when we moved into our house, after that second year, we never in this house have ever had one. But it was easy to see that, like, you're bringing in the Christmas tree.
You're nailing it down.
You're
putting
adorning it with silver and gold. You're bowing down to put the gifts underneath it. And so for me, that one was, it was like, okay, we're not going to do the Christmas tree anymore.
Yeah, and so
I'll be right back.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of Christians from that point were like, okay, well, yeah, we can still celebrate Christmas. The Christmas tree never had anything to do with Yeshua in the first place, right? Like a lot of mainline Christians, they may come to that conclusion, whether they still put the tree up or not. That's not really the point. What I'm kind of saying is that they'll remove the tree, but they'll still celebrate the fullness of the holiday minus the tree. And I feel like that's okay, guys. That's a learning process. And I feel like for any of this, as long as you don't stop at that next, barricade, and you look around and you see if the path still continues, that's okay. And so, but what I've also seen is a lot of Christians, they'll go that far. They'll remove the tree because it's evident, but they won't really research it anymore. And I'll wait for Francesca to get back to fully get into it. But the first thing, obviously, I noticed, right, was exactly what she mentioned, was with the Christmas tree. So that's a great place to start. But then what about the holiday itself? So during my research into ancient civilizations, into ancient religions, the secret societies or mystery religions, as they're called, I started noticing this similar thing. And it's kind of a cliche in movies about, witchcraft or sorcery or, anything like that, where they talk about the summer solstice and the winter solstice. They talk about the equinoxes and the winter and solar equinoxes. And and I noticed this pattern where there's all this, sun worship, and you look into the other kind of where Christmas came from, right? We can see you have Tammuz, you have the fact that Nimrod, the king of Babylon, that his birth was actually on the winter solstice. We have the mystery religions of, that's when the sun, that's when the sun dies. Excuse me, the sun dies, and when the sun is reborn, right, bringing back the light, right, we go from a point where we have the less amount of sun during the winter to where it starts equalizing, and we're starting getting more and more light. And so this whole light worship, this sun worship of the sun being reborn and dying and reborn, we see that in Egyptian, we see that in Norse mythology, we see it in all the mythologies around the world. So I started noticing this pattern, and when I noticed this pattern, I started looking into actually, Yeshua, like when was he born? Now, there is, and I feel like this can be debated, but I feel like a lot of people will say he was actually conceived around this time, and that the Jewish culture, the Hebrew culture, marks the quote unquote birthday as the day of conception, which, guys, let's get real. We all are. Our life does begin at conception. That's why I like saying happy breath day, right? Because that was the first day you took a breath. Not when you were born. Minusing all the grabbler laws about being born and birthed and all that jazz that we kind of talked about during the episode currency. But kind of scaling it back is I started seeing these patterns. And I looked into it, right? And I saw that the Catholic Church, right? And I feel like this goes right along with the Catholic Church, is they kind of superseded, they kind of, what is that called? They kind of subverted Christianity, right? We saw in history, we can kind of see this back and forth of the Roman Empire and the Christians and the uprisings and and them smashing them down, and all the way up to Nero and burning the Christian and blaming them for this fire, and then he gets this new palace. Like, you can kind of see all those things. Well, you see that exact same thing with the Roman Church, right? With Catholicism and its conception, where if you looked down at the Germanics, right, they were bringing in trees and adorning them. They were taking these evergreens and praying to them. Like, we know you're green. This is a sign for us. This is a idol that's gonna bring back the light, right? And that connects with all the God worship of the dying of the sun and the rebirth of the sun and the coming, with the winter solstice and all those different forms of religions or types of religions during that time previously. And so it makes it kind of hard when you're talking to Christians to kind of explain that to them, right? Because even from our own memories and our own, experiences, it's beautiful and heartwarming, and you get to be together with family, and you get all this good food, and you get all this candy, and you get all these presents. How could something like this be bad? And then let's look into that, right? Let's look into Saturnalius and how great they would treat that woman and how great they would treat that man, all the way into the point where they sacrifice them. But that's hard. That's hard to tell someone, right?
Yeah, that's why if they're not
if they're not seeking that truth, you're almost doing a disservice to them by telling them. It's kind of like it's a disservice. If you think a movie is really good, it would be a disservice to go in there and say, this is the ending, right? Because they didn't get all the emotion, all the things to that ending, right? They were just told the ending. And so I was kind of explaining my part of the story of like all the things that I kind of saw and correlated and me coming out of it. What were some of the big parts for you? So you already talked about the Christmas tree. What other things did you start connecting and noticing where it even, kept pushing you past Christmas?
Our dog is right here. She's
Should we
scared.
get up here? You want to get up here, Remy?
She's not gonna jump up here.
Let's see if we can, come here, Remy. Let's see if we can get the Remy in here. Oh, there's that beautiful Remy. Let's get her to look. Let's get her to look in the camera. Come here, Remy. Get up here.
No way, I'm gonna fall.
No,
hit
sugar.
the
Come on.
green screen.
Come on, Remy. You can get up here. Come on. Get up here. Get up here,
She's
big
gonna
girl.
freak
Come on.
out.
Oh,
I'm
there
really
we go.
gonna fall.
There we go. Okay, stand up. Remy, here. You want it? You want it? Oh, look. There. This is the Remy, guys. This is Remington. This is our beautiful puppy dog. She protects all our children.
She'll be 10 in March.
And she's a wonderful. She's an old lady, but she's so strong and fierce. Look at it. Look at those teeth. Look at them. All right, Remy,
Now
get
how are we
down.
gonna get her down?
Like this.
Ah!
There we go.
Don't mind me. I think it's everything that you already said. I think that we're talking to an audience who has done the research.
No, I know, but I'm saying, and I know they have done the research, but I'm saying for you, what were some of those key factors where it kept you pushing, right? Because
just realizing like what we were actually worshiping, like that spirit that I'm talking about, either it's a spirit from the Father or it's not, and I don't think that it is. I think it's a totally different spirit. So like I think that it creates a lot of idolatry with the Christmas tree and with Santa. It's basically like, for me, it was just realizing what I was doing as a child, like what we were really doing and celebrating.
And I think like more for you than me, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but like the materialistic part of it, right? Like you love giving people gifts.
But I don't care about receiving them.
No, I know, but I'm saying you love giving people gifts.
I love to think about people.
So when all of a sudden, like, and we
You're right.
all know it, right? Like there's that love and hate relationship with it, where you have all the happiness that you get from giving gifts, but then think about all the stress, all the money, all the things leading up to that feeling that you kind of... it's almost like the opposite of Saturnalius, where like you like are attacking yourself. You're putting yourself through all this unneeded stress and everything.
Yeah.
For then getting a release of endorphins that's like, yay, they're happy, they like that thing,
so
right?
And I think too, like, it's such a financial struggle because it's so materialistic now. Like when we decided to like actually shut the door, and I realized like, wow, we were gonna save a lot of money doing this. It was really hard, because I do love to think about like what do people love, and I like to show them that I'm thinking about them. It's a way that I do. I cook for you and I give you gifts. That's how I express that I love you and that I'm thinking about you. So yeah, that part was hard. I wanted to like get our baby stuff, but I knew that I couldn't do it in that way anymore. I wanted to get our extended family gifts, but I knew I couldn't do it because of this holiday. I had to find other ways and other reasons to do it. That's true, that was hard. But now when I see people like coming so far, like having it been so long, doing it the way that we have, did I just lose my train of thought?
Did you?
I think so. Giving gifts.
So
Oh, I see what a financial burden it is for people. That was my point.
yeah.
Is that like you think that you have to, or society, Christmas teaches you that you have to spend more and more and more to keep it going.
Well, and it's almost like a drug addiction, right? Where it's like that a little amount of H that you had before, that doesn't do anything for you now. Now you need this much to get that same high. And it's like, same for buying gifts, right? Like when you start out, right? Think about it. Year 1, 2, 3, you get them kind of gifts that they're going to be destroyed. Like, you know, they're cheap gifts that you don't really care about. And then as they get older, you buy more and more expensive gifts, nicer and nicer things. So, excuse me, everyone.
Do you want a drink?
No, I got water right here. Thank you, though. You buy more and more expensive gifts when they're getting to like teenagers. Now you're buying them hundreds of dollar items, right? You're buying $100
thousands of dollars
of shoes, right? And then, you know, for the more financially inclined, you know, people,
PS5s.
you're getting PS5s, you're getting cars, you're getting iPhones, you're getting, you know, all these things, and it's just keep kind of implementing up. And I know where this isn't a holiday, but I kind of want to talk about how it's similar, because think about as a child. As a child, it just starts out, you go to these little parties, right? And then when you're old enough, then you start trick-or-treating, right? Like with your mom. And then eventually you start trick-or-treating without your parents, right? Then when you're kind of more of a teenager or young adult, right? But then you start getting into mischief, and then you start getting, more of a teenager. Then you start going to costume parties and drinking and partying, right? And then, all the way, I'm assuming, to adult, people keep doing those things, right? And then they have their children, and then it kind of starts over for the person, where they start doing the events and then trick-or-treating, and then eventually their children go off and start doing it. But just how that kind of, the lead up to it, right, is they're almost basically getting you ready to go party and get drunk and fornicate and do all these worldly things from the inception of it, right? But it's just all good and fun where kids dress up and they get candy. Same thing with Christmas, where my mom has broke her back, my dad has broke his back. I've seen families break their back over Christmas and making it happen, right? And still, right? And so people will go into debt, right? Like they'll use usury, right, to credit to buy all these gifts, and then I'm going to pay that back throughout the rest of the year. So they're literally even being against Torah if you're buying it with usury to give these gifts. And so it's so hard. It's so hard, definitely, when it comes to family. And I feel like family and friends, it's like they almost feel like you're separating from them with these beliefs, because right, once you come to these conclusions, once this evidence is in front of you, if you're an intellectually, morally honest person, you're gonna say, I can't participate in these anymore, right? But we do still have to, at least for myself, that's how I feel. But I do still see that, again, I'm gonna use this picture. You're let's say a single man or a single woman, and your family celebrates these things. What are you supposed to do? Just not go to them and not go get those gifts, those things that you needed or wanted? Do you say, nope, I'm not coming to your dinner, right? Are you going to go cook yourself a meal? And then you have that history where you said, like, you feel like you're missing something. You're like, there's something here that's here. And that's only because there was something always there, right? You always dressed up for Halloween. So but Halloween is just one day, right? There's a little bit leading up to it, maybe a little
Christmas
after
is
it.
like 5
but
months
Christmas
long. No,
is so long, right? It really is. I feel like right after Halloween decorations go down.
Well, I feel like in Utah, that's how Halloween is. It's the whole month of October.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm kind of saying is, like, Christmas everywhere from at least
Halloween.
No, I'll say at least Thanksgiving. But a lot of people still, from Halloween all the way till January 1st, have their Christmas tree up, have their decorations up. They're still in that quote-unquote Christmas spirit, right? So you're not just again, Christmas is one day, right? 2 if you count Eve, right? But then it's everyone knows it's much longer than 2 days. And so it's just so interesting, all of those kind of setups within the culture, within our communities, within our families, that kind of set you up to make it so hard, right? For our children, it wasn't hard for them to not celebrate Christmas because they never celebrated. Well, Jocelyn did, but she didn't remember, right? Yeah. So it's such an interesting dynamic.
Well, and Joy, welcome, sister. I know you've been here most of the time. And TD, welcome, sister. Matt from Back to the Covenant, Johnny, Tyler, hi everybody. But Joy had said, like,
Marcia.
We love Marcia. Joy had said that, and how unappreciative they are. Like, by the time they're teenagers and they just want more, they're totally unappreciated. They feel like they deserve it. It's their right. That materialism is their right.
Well, it's crazy because, like, they're like, you got them the best you could with the usury, right? With the loan. And then they sit there and they're like, this isn't even what I wanted.
It's not as much as last year.
It's not the best one. Last year you got me the best one. This one's the second gen. Why'd you do, you have all of that, and it really sets people up to that's why I say it's such a veneer of this beauty. It's a veneer of those, and we have those memories. I'm not taking away from that, but I'm saying, like, when you look at if you look at the cold hard facts about what it does, you take away all the facade, you take all the way the lights and the glitter and all that. What do you got? You got a whole bunch of people going to usury, into debt for gifts, for items that they probably don't need, that their children didn't earn, right? That some magical guy in the North Pole gave them.
Jeremy said corporatized holiday.
Yeah.
Just in the next week, guys, get ready for Valentine's Day. That's next. In the next week. It's 2 months away.
Yep, and then
get ready.
Like the day after Valentine's Day, that stuff goes in the sale. Next week, it's Easter stuff. Easter stuff's already up.
And that Irish.
Oh, and St. Patty's Day, right? Patty's Day, yeah. So it's like, it's just a constant flow, great point, Jeremy, of this corporatization of these holidization. But again, it's nothing new. They used to do these things back then, right? They used to create these traditions then, and you got so much evil in it. Like, did you know where mistletoe comes from?
I'm sure at one point I did.
Do you remember?
No.
So guys, for those that don't know, the whole kiss under the mistletoe thing, women would eat mistletoe. They would eat the berries, which are poisonous, but that poison would stop them from getting pregnant. So during this holiday season, they could have a whole bunch of fornications. They would meet under the mistletoe. She would eat a mistletoe, and that would be her quote unquote birth control. So
no, I never knew that.
So even in a movie, right? We've all seen it in movie. This, that cliche of, oh, we're standing on the mistletoe, let's give us a kiss, and so kind of to keep that rolling is they take things that are so.
What you think is like.
No, they take things that are so like birth control, right? Something that is blocking the life, right? Is blocking life. Oh. And then they even cliche it more. They take it from something that's actually kind of grotesque. They hide it under the veneer of, oh, we just kiss under the mistletoe, innocence. Right? Yeah. It's just innocent. And then they prop that up. It literally blows my mind how we do this to ourselves. We did this to ourselves.
Something I wanted to say about Halloween too was that, like, we're teaching our children to just desensitize
and inform
themselves, because like I remember when I took my niece and nephew like trick-or-treating, and they would have like the haunted houses in the neighborhood, and you're like, oh, just do it, it's not real, just partake in it, it's not real. And that's what you tell them over and over.
You don't need to be scared, it's not real.
Exactly. And you're just desensitizing them
to zombies and monsters and vampires and witchcraft and bobbing for apples in a cauldron
and blood and gore
and bats and spider and all of these, like, I'm not saying bats and spiders are themselves evil, right? Because the Father created them. I'm just saying, like, it's very dark, right? So again, easy. And then, but Christmas is about light. It's about beauty. It's about, so how can you reject such a thing? And so, guys, like, we just wanted to kind of share our... Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to ask in the chat, like, who... Did you all get rid of...
I'm going to let you read and respond.
Okay. Did you all get rid of mainstream holidays and then come to the feasts? Or did you come to the feasts and then start getting rid of mainstream holidays? Because I had no idea about the feasts at this point. And so I'm just curious to see, like, which way other people's walks went. I don't know if that's, like, out of the blue or not. Someone over on this chat said that they had gotten fired from the church for participating in, or not participating in Halloween anymore. And that just shows you, like, how far the church is in these ridiculous ideologies like, oh, well, we do an outreach program on Halloween, so it's not really Halloween anymore. Or you're teaching your children it's okay to celebrate Halloween as long as you're celebrating Halloween with the church. And in full transparency, like, we never did Halloween with our children. The first year that we lived in Utah, I was getting into a Sunday church here, and we did not Zachariah, but I had taken Jocelyn to a trunk or treat, not to like get candy. I was working it as like taking pictures for the church, but it, like, I felt just being there was so icky, and I'm like, how do people justify doing trunk or treats with the church? Like, they're like, oh, well, if you do Easter egg hunts with the church, if you do trunk or treats with the church, then you're inviting the community in, and then they'll see the truth. No, what the community sees is you doing and behaving exactly as they are. And then you're just providing a place for them to do it with you.
Well, it's almost like a pretentious thing. Like, oh, we don't do Halloween. We do trick or treat. We do trunk or treat, right? It's like, we're not participating in the evils. We're giving people a way to come out of the evil to a lesser evil.
Babe.
What? I'm just saying.
He feels strongly about it.
Well, that's why I said pretentious and why I started talking like that, because it is that way. It's like, oh, well, what we're doing is the right way. What they're doing is the wrong way, right? So if we do it like this, then all of a sudden we're going to have people coming into the church because we're not saying it's evil, right? It's almost like, oh, we love everyone, including abominations. So let's put those abominations as pastors of our church, right? To show that we love, like we love. And of course they like to misconstrue love, right? Very easily. So there's a whole bunch of people that answered. Did you answer them?
Yes. Okay. So basically, one of two things is what I'm seeing people say is that they got rid of it, and then Yah showed them his commanded times, or it all happened at once, which I think is awesome. So, and I think that because we had 1 foot in and 1 foot out, I don't think that Yah like showed us immediately. He was letting us figure it out.
Commercial Sound and Video said, how does Christmas work on a flat earth? It's actually much more probable, right? Because like he just has to go on the plane surface. Santa doesn't have to go all the way around, right? Though his trips from Chile to Australia, are all but impossible. That's funny.
So once we made the full decision to like be done and close that door, and then Yah showed us his appointed times. Now I will say that coming into the appointed times, who did we look to learn from?
Jews.
Yeah,
we went so far onto that side with Seder dinners and.
Yep. So we did Seder dinners for Passover in the beginning, which I still think is a beautiful way to tell the story.
Totally.
However, we don't do that. And then we did Purim for years, at least 2 years. We did Purim, which is historical, just like Hanukkah. It is a part of history, and so I think that if it's worth celebrating, I guess. But I think that what the Jewish culture has done in taking in being like kind of jealous of Christianity and turning Purim into Halloween is kind of what they've done now. Like, it started out, children would dress up being Mary or Joseph or a shepherd, and now they just get to dress up as whatever they want for Purim. And then like with Hanukkah, it's history, it's historical. I think that the rededication of the temple is something to pass down, is something biblically to teach your children about. I do not appreciate how they've, instead of doing the Christmas tree, they've brought in bushes and they adorn their bushes now. They do 8 days of gifts, or they'll do 1 day of many gifts, just like on Christmas. All sorts of things that stemmed from like jealousy of what the world was doing. But then, so looking to Jewish culture for the feasts, we have had to dial that so far back the other way, because what we did was we just
replaced it.
We traded one group of people's traditions for another group of people's traditions, and then once we realized that we were doing that,
where it's like, oh wow, we literally just replaced traditions. We're not doing what the Father is asking us to do. we're doing what men have created, what we want to do.
Man-made
right?
traditions, just like with Hanukkah, how they spin the dreidels, or you have a Hanukkah. We did a Hanukkah for, I think, 2 years of Hanukkah, and
And then we're like, wait, why did we change it? Where does this change come from? It comes from not us.
That 8 days of oil, it wasn't even written about until something like 500 years after the rededication of the temple.
Are we subscribing to something that is just another made up fantasy, right? Another folk tale to kind of give history to the tradition. And so we're still there, guys. We're still learning and changing and growing and trying to figure it all out. And it is fun. It's fun for me. It's fun to seek the truth. And so even though there are times where it's challenging, right, with friends, with family, with loved ones, with spouses, if you're diligently seeking the truth, if you're seeking the Father's face, he's going to reveal it. He's going to reveal himself to you. And so it's so important. Something Joy said was so funny. She said, Sunday, Easter, ham at church.
Yeah. Just a counterfeit.
It's like, literally wrong Sabbath day, wrong food. You're celebrating Ishtar, right? It's like it's all there. And all the holidays are like that. And we'll probably end up doing one for each, right? Because this is fun to kind of chat with my beautiful wife and chat with Chat and talk about these things with fellow believers.
The more that we got into Feast in the Appointed Times, it was easier to see where we had adopted, because we were trying to learn about, every year, relearn about what we're celebrating and teach it to the next generation. And then with studying every year, especially with Passover, because removing the leaven from the house and you having to teach your children why you're doing that every year, it really teaches you to dive in. And so we've chosen to do that with every feast because we don't want our children to just take tradition.
Well, and this is something that I was thinking I was kind of thinking from the outside perspective, but how actually it's beneficial because they've never had the same thing. There is no this always happens every year, right? And a lot of people say that's bad. They're not going to have any memories to look back. But it's the goodness I see it is that they're not going to be anchored to anything, right? They're not going to be anchored to anything that they shouldn't be. Their foundation is going to be, we need to figure this out for ourselves. We didn't have, put out the cookies for Santa, right? They didn't ever have to go do that and then not do that, right?
I think it was Joy that said that cookies and Santa, putting cookies out for Santa, was like a sacrifice on the altar.
Yeah.
Like leaving something for your God.
Yeah. Yeah, and they would literally do that, right? They would go to their idols and they would lay food there,
in certain
right?
cultures,
and even in certain cultures, they do that for the dead, right? They come and bring food and drinks and set them at their place, knowing that they're going to come and get them, right? Yeah, it's very interesting.
And they leave it on their Buddhas and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But.
Robert said, on a sphere, the reindeer have to account for the Cornelius effect. That's hilarious.
I think that with the decision of being fully out of it, I felt when Yash showed us the feast, it was like a blessing. Yeah. It was like a gift, like a reaction of, he was like, okay, now you're ready to have them. I'm going to show you something even bigger and better, and this is what it's supposed to have been this whole time, and I'm going to let you partake in that. I felt very blessed, and I still, to this day, will question, why? Why are we so blessed that we get to know these things, that we get to partake in them?
Why were these pieces of the puzzle given to us and not to someone else?
Like
right?
our sister, our brother, our mom, our dad.
Yeah. And it can get lonely, right? Definitely we're Christians, so that's the kind of niche in the world. And then we're Torah observant Christians, which makes it even more niche. And then we're we're biblical cosmologist, Torah observant Christians. So we're even more in a niche. And it's And so
Worth it.
it's so worth it, right? Because our thing is for truth. It's not for what club we can be a part of. It's where does truth lead us, and always willing to be able to accept truth over traditions, over family, over, if you love your dad more than me, if you love your mom more than me, then you're not worthy of me. If you love Christmas and Halloween more than you love Sukkot or Passover, are you worthy of him? You know what I mean? And so it's a fine line.
I did want to talk about, like, once we started doing the feast, I very much wanted to, like, open them to everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, everybody that we knew. Like, I wanted to invite them for Passover. I wanted them to partake in Sukkot. And since then, I've had to learn that, like,
Scale it back a little bit.
Yeah, they need to make that decision on their, especially with Passover, because that's a covenant. You are entering into a covenant when you choose to do those things. Mm-hmm. And it's not about taking worldly people out and sitting them down at your table and saying, and like giving them,
this is the right way.
Yeah, and giving them that teaching. You have to let y'all bring them to, like, live your life as a light, but, like, let y'all do the work in them to where they're, like, asking, like we had neighbors, Mormon neighbors, come to us and say, we want to know about Passover. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to invite them to come sit at our table and use that as our teaching of Passover. No, like, we're going to maybe talk scriptures with them or send them a video or two or something like that. Mm-hmm. And, like, with Hanukkah, I think I learned it majorly with Hanukkah because and it's not appointed. Like, I get it. Take it or leave it. I don't care. But, like, I can take it or leave it. I don't care. I think it's historical. So, but with that, like, we've invited people to our table for Hanukkah to basically replace, like, so that we could compromise, and then they'll leave being, and do a teaching. Like, I have a whole teaching on it.
Which is nothing we got as kids, right? Like, they never brought up scriptures. They said it was about Jesus. They maybe read a little out of the Gospels, talking about the 3 wise men and him in the manger, but that's as far as it went when it came to connecting it to scripture.
And they walk away none the wiser.
Yeah.
Like, they walk away, I think, more confused, mm-hmm. For me doing that. And because it brings me so much joy, like, I just wanted to share it, and I would be happy to do that now with people who have made the decision first. But I'm not mm-hmm. going to be like, hey, come travel on Sukkot with us. No, these appointed times are covenants that people have to enter in themselves. They have to make that decision.
And that's how we feel about it. We're not telling you how y'all have to do it or what's right or wrong in that example, but for us, we want it to be with like-minded people. We don't want to have to, like, Sukkot is supposed to be this week of praise and partying is a bad word, but celebration, right? To celebrate.
And it feels like a party.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's bad. I just what that picture paints. It's almost like the word Christian, right? Like, it pretty much paints like a certain picture. Oh, you're Christian? That means you believe Jesus is God. That means you can eat whatever you want. That means the law is done away with. Like, there are some things with mm-hmm. those terms. When you say party, people get a certain idea of what you're saying.
I pick up what you're throwing down. And I think who had said it? Tyler and Joy had said it earlier, like, when somebody wishes them a Merry Christmas, their response is, God bless you. I think that's beautiful. That's like a perfect response. Thank you. God bless you. I love that.
Yeah. I saw someone else say, I hope you have happy holidays.
Like joy during this time of year or something.
Yeah, I hope your holidays are good. You know what I mean? It's such a weird. It's so weird, and it's like you don't want to be pretentious, but by not saying Merry Christmas, it's kind of like you're pretentious or saying. It's such a weird, like, how the culture is set up to make you feel like an outsider if you don't participate in it.
That's why I think, like, for those who are in, like, their Sunday worship, those who are in church and they're saying Merry Christmas, and you're turning it and you're saying, well, God bless you.
Yeah.
Like, that's a blessing. Like, you get to either bless somebody or you get to curse them, and coming back with a response that says God bless you, that is the best response ever.
Totally.
Hi Jeremy, hi Bill, and Mountain Mama, I see you.
You already say hi to Shamgar?
No.
Hi, Shamgar.
I
Johnny Cool. What's up, brother? Back Covenant. When someone says Merry Christmas to me, I just simply say thank you back. Like, that's what I've been doing. I love it. Thank you. Like, I
don't know if you sound less pretentious saying
I know.
thank you.
I know. It's like, no, it's your Merry Christmas is just for me. I will not give you the Merry Christmas back.
That's funny. I like that.
Yeah. Country Dad said Hebrew definition of holly, sickness, disease, and grief. Yeah.
Just like Chris Mass, murder.
Yeah. Chris Mass, the Mass of Christ. It was like, wait, I thought it was his birth, not his death. You know, it's weird. Very weird when you look into those words in other languages like Latin.
But, Matt and Sam called me, the country fam, whom we love and adore. They had called me the other day, and they were telling me about how they were celebrating the Feast of Remembrance.
Okay.
And I had to humble myself and say, well, what's that? And they were like, it's about remembering the story of Noah and the flood and stuff. And so that is going to be. And then I know that some people who are in the chat, they do the Festival of New Wine, and I don't really know too much about that. But the Feast of Remembrance, it's in Genesis and it's in Jubilees, they said, where like Yall calls you to have like a meal and remember it biblically. And so that'll be, and it's during this time of year, so it's in December. And so if you don't know about it, you can be like me. We'll go look into it.
Yeah, I don't know it either, but yeah, I want to have the Father and all He wants for me in my life, right? As much as I can, as you know, we obviously are. None of us are perfect, but we're on our path. That's what's beautiful to me. It's beautiful to not just stay stagnant because your parents were stagnant, or stay stagnant because your spouse is stagnant. Like, I'm gonna jump this back to, because you were talking about going to church on Sunday. That was another thing that I went to her about. I'm like, hey, I'm not doing too well with churches. You know, I have these issues with churches, and the fact that we're supposed to have it on the Sabbath as the seventh day, not the first day. I have an issue with that. And I told her, like, hey, I'm not gonna go to a church that does it on Sunday. And like, for her, right at the time, that was like an impossible task, right? How am I gonna find a church?
The one that we went to, in the window shop, that was still on Sunday, wasn't it?
No.
No, it wasn't.
No.
So I was doing both at one point.
Yeah, you were doing Sunday, and then
I was going on Saturday.
And it just so happened that my mom went to the store right next to it and was like, "Oh, they have Saturday Sabbath."
No, we went to a pet store. And no, my point was that they went into the store. She took our children in to go look at the animals, and I was sitting there and I looked up, and there's this sign outside of the door, and it's like Sabbath discipleship church
Saturdays.
Saturday Sabbath service. And I was like, wow. So at the time I had a friend who was looking for the same thing. We were going to the same. That's why I think it was on Sunday.
No, it was Sunday at the other place.
Yeah. Melissa's dad's.
At the glass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So at that time, I had a friend who was introducing me to the idea
of Torah.
That wasn't him. It was somebody that wasn't him that was like, hey, I think that the Sabbath is on this day. I think that this is how we should honor it. And so I called her, texted her, and I was like, oh my gosh, just right here on Main Street, right down the road, there's a Sabbath keeping church. We should try it. She was like, well, let's go together because I don't want to get caught in a cult.
Yeah.
She was like, I've been in situations before. Let's make sure that this isn't some like weird cultish thing. Our families will go together. And then from there,
like
Sabbath.
Now we are where we're now, right? Like, we've learned and grown past that group into where we are now, and you know, we're on our journey, just as y'all are all on your own journeys, and of course, hopefully with the Father's will backed up with that. And so guys, you know, it's a hard time of the year, definitely for those coming to the truth, to those who see the downfalls, the negatives that Christmas has, and who have been or are, you know, persuaded and seduced by what it is, what's going on now. And so all we would say, guys, is, lean on the Father, lean on mercy, lean on love, lean on kindness when it comes to these topics, because it's so easy to become zealotry about it and to push them out to people that it shouldn't be pushed out, and to offend people that you don't mean to offend in these different ways. And even if you do, we're still growing and we're still learning. But hopefully y'all got something out of hearing of our kind of testimony of coming out of Christmas. Hopefully, if y'all didn't see, check out our last video that we did together, our birth stories about our 4 children and how they came into this world. But yeah, I think we wanted to share. We got to share everything that we wanted to, and for those who are out there, we appreciate you for joining us. Please do make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. It really does help us grow as a community. I'm gonna bring this down a little bit, or it's gonna all be hidden.
Just put it on my face.
There.
Right there.
Right there. So yeah, please show us some love with that. If you're over on Take on the World, guys, shout out to Chris and Liz Bailey. Great channel, great community over there. If you're not subscribed, go check them out. Links in the description. Vice versa, if you're over there on Take on the World and you're not subscribed to Circle of the Earth Fellowship, we appreciate any of that support. But yeah, let's call it. Thank you, everybody. Until next time. One last bit of housekeeping before we go. The episodes have been pushed back to January 6th. That's when we'll start out number 8. I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff. I'm working on a new intro. I'm working on getting the list together for all the episodes, so those watching have access to those links to go watch those videos later on at their discretion. And so I got a whole bunch of stuff coming, new stuff coming. So again, we appreciate all the support. I don't have it up here, but we've already gone up like another 20 subscribers since our last stream. So thank you to all those new subscribers and commenters. Yeah. So until next time, guys, remember that ABBA loved you first, and we hope you have a great evening. Good night, everybody. Wrong one. Sorry, I'm trying to make us leave. There we go. Bye, everyone.